there, it's Carrie, and this is Beyond the Accent, the podcast where we talk about voice, identity, and the wild, unpredictable beauty of sounding like yourself in another language. Today's episode is a little different. It's a love letter, a language lesson, and a bit of a linguistic mystery. So let us start with a question. Could Shakespeare have written his plays in French? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Of course, he could have written them in French had he spoken the language, had he been born someplace else, but I'm not talking about translation. I'm talking about music, rhythm, the pulse of the language, the way English breathes and stretches and swings like jazz, the way it demands its own musical form. Let me explain. Take a line like, to be or not to be, that is a question, right? Try saying it in a steady, flat rhythm with each syllable taking up the same space. To be or not to be, that is the question. It's going to sound robotic, right? Off, like the meaning has slipped through your fingers somehow. Now say it with the natural English rhythm, like your brain, your whole body tells you to. To be or not to be, that is the question. That rhythm? That little roller coaster of tension and release, that is called stress timing, and English lives on it. So what does this have to do with French? Well, linguists have long categorized languages by their rhythmic tendencies. English is a stress time language, meaning that stress syllables come at a fairly regular interval, and the rest gets compressed to fit the beat. Some syllables stretch like taffy, others nearly vanish. French, on the other hand, is syllable timed. Every syllable gets its fair share of time. The rhythm is more even, more measured, more, French, And some languages have their own unique sense of rhythm. Japanese, for instance, is often described as mora timed. That means that each unit of sound, or mora, gets timed out evenly. It's an even finer grain than syllables. Then there's Russian, a language that keeps linguists deliciously puzzled. It's often called stress-timed, like English, and it is, okay? But its rhythmic behavior is less cut and dry. According to recent research by Daria Mitciuk and her team, Russian has strong, unpredictable word stress, but in connected speech, it doesn't squish its unstressed syllables the way English does. Rhythmically, it leans mixed, right? So not quite stress-timed, not quite syllable-timed, but something in between. Some even call it a stress-based language with syllable-timed tendencies. What makes Russian even more fascinating is that it lacks clear rules for stress placement. Stress is lexical. It can fall anywhere and often shifts across forms of the same word. But when researchers analyzed over 18 million tokens and tested stress placement on pseudo-words, made-up words, a pattern began to emerge. A soft pattern, okay? A rhythm that whispers more than it declares, One major insight is this. In Russian, syllabic weight matters. Heavier syllables, the ones packed with consonants, are more likely to attract stress. Say the first syllable is heavier. Stress tends to land there. If the second has more heft, it often takes the lead. Now, this sort of subtle tug of war has real consequences in how we speak and perceive rhythm of Russian. And while there's no ironclad rule, the data show a slight trochaic tendency. Stress on the first syllable in disyllabic words. But don't mistake it for a law. It's more like a breeze than a command. Trochee, yes, but softly. Now, this nuance is key, because while theoretical phonologists like Halley, Kiparsky, Melville, and Eldred have long debated whether Russian has a default stress pattern, trochaic, or iambic, like English does, actual speakers in large-scale experiments have shown we follow the weight. So heavier syllables feel more grounded, more stress-worthy to Russian speakers. So what does this mean for us as learners, teachers, and lovers of sound? That rhythm isn't just a property of the language. It's a dance between structure and intuition, between physics of syllables and poetry of perception. Here's where it gets even juicier. Phonetician Peter Roach, one of the giants in the field, took on this question years ago. Can we really divide languages neatly into stress-timed, syllable-timed, and more-timed camps? He tried. He ran acoustic analyses on English, French, Russian, Arabic, Yoruba, and Telugu. He looked at how syllable length and interstress intervals actually behaved. And the verdict is this: it doesn't quite hold that way of categorizing at the end of the day. Even languages thought to be paragons of stress timing, like English, they didn't show the mathematically regular stress beats that people expected. Listeners perceive rhythm where it doesn't objectively exist. The rhythm lives in our ears, not in the waveform. So Roach, bless him, came to this bold but oddly freeing conclusion. These categories we've built, stress-timed, syllable-timed, more-timed, they might be more perceptual than physical, but they're very much there because, perception's everything. So that means rhythm isn't something that your mouth does, it's something that your brain tunes into, which brings us back to Shakespeare. But before we go there, a quick note about music. There's this fascinating study by Patel, Iverson, and Rosenberg that looked at both language and music across cultures. They analyzed the rhythm and melody of English and French, not just in speech, but in the music composed by native speakers of each language. What is it that they found? The rhythm of the language influenced the music that people wrote. Composers who spoke English tended to write with more varied rhythmic timing, more syncopation, more contrast, while French composers leaned towards smoother, more evenly timed phrases. It's as if the timing logic of their native language seeped into their music. English breathes in fits and starts like spoken jazz. French flows with poise, like a dance on rails. It's one more piece of evidence that rhythm isn't just learned, it's lived. And so Shakespeare's plays are famously written in iambic pentameter. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. It mimics a heartbeat. It mimics natural English speech. And it absolutely depends on stress. If you try saying an iambic line in syllable-timed French, it falls flat. The music doesn't land. Not because French is less musical, but because its music moves differently. French has elegance and glide. English has groove and swing. And this isn't about which language is better, okay? It's about how they move differently. One of the biggest mindset shifts that I offer my students is this. Accent is not just about how you sound. It's about how you listen. You cannot play with English rhythm until you learn to hear it first. That's why this whole topic of rhythm and melody is so dear to me. And I'm not here to teach you how to mimic someone else. I'm here to help you find your own voice in this new or not so new or not at all new language. A voice that understands the rules of the rhythm and then plays with them like jazz. So in my recent workshop, we went deep into this topic, how stress, rhythm, and melody shape English speech, and how you can start hearing it and using it to your own advantage or your students' advantage if you're an English teacher yourself. So if you're curious to not just hear the theory, but to feel it in action through visuals, guided practice, and real interaction, the recording of the killer rhythm and intonation workshop that we had a week ago will be available this Monday. Tomorrow, it's packed with the very tools we brushed up against today. Only this time, you get to experience them on your own voice, in your own tempo. I will also be including a much helpful mini workbook to guide you through the process. I'll be getting in touch with you soon, so keep an eye out. You won't want to miss this. You don't need to, quote unquote, sound like a native, although you may as well get there when you least expect it at some point. Who knows? You just need to find your own music first. Your own, very well-informed, stress-timed music. To da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Thanks for being here. This was your host, Carrie. Be sure to stay in touch, and we'll be catching up very soon in a week's time. Have a good one. Bye now.